Give me an N.
Give me an O. Netflix, no! Hi guys, I'm Gabby.
I'm Ashley.
And this week we reviewed
Cheerleader Ninjas. Or is it Ninja Cheerleaders? I don't...
Cheerleader Ninjas. One website said Ninja Cheerleaders.
Well, there was a remake in 2008, that's why. With George Takei from Star Trek. I looked some stuff up.
Shoot.
It's good. So this review's a little bit different because I didn't finish the movie. Bad, Ashley, bad. It was just, I couldn't get far enough where I cared. So unlike Gabby, who finished the whole thing and has a wonderful review probably for you guys, I'm gonna sit back and just kind of let you know what really got me out of the whole watching process and why I couldn't finish it.
Okay, so Cheerleader Ninjas. I loved this movie. It's a terrible movie, but it's one of those movies that gets to the point where it's so bad that you just have to fall in love with it.
It's one of the, definitely knew it was a bad movie. It wasn't trying to be anything else. On Wikipedia, I think it said it had 0 budget.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. It's like, hey, maybe I could do that.
Actually did watch the beginning, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So at the beginning, there are there's credits, and there are comments with the credits where it's like, oh, this is starring these 3 people. But like when it mentions the main girl, it's like she will be topless at the end of the movie if you can get through it.
Hold on. And just lots of funny things with each person. Like the one villain was like, we're not gonna tell you if he's gay yet, you have to figure it out. Okay, we'll tell you, he's gay.
Yeah.
And that's like this first thing they tell you when you meet him on screen too, which is like, okay.
Yes. So the movie makes fun of itself a lot. It does recognize that it's a bad movie, and you can tell that it's a very low budget film. There are lots of action scenes, as you could assume, from Cheerleader Ninjas.
Where apparently, I saw one of them, but apparently it's throughout the whole movie they use sex dolls as like the bodies that get hurt because you can't have people actually get hurt, so they just beat up sex dolls instead of the real actresses.
And it's really funny, because sex dolls are kind of prominent throughout the entirety of the movie. They're in like the nerd's cave, and they're basically just kind of everywhere. There are, as seems to be a theme with lots of the movies we've reviewed, because bad movies have lots of naked people in them, namely naked women. And you do get to see everything at points throughout this, so.
Yeah, there were so many, from what I saw, unnecessary topless scenes. Like, I never got that far, but.
You get full on.
I got
later.
some butt at one point, that was
full
cool.
frontal.
Full frontal, that's great.
It happens. It's a thing. I don't know. I think, like, I guess the woman's, like, somewhat kind of semi-famous. I don't remember what her name was, but they like kind of made a big deal about her in the credits.
Which one?
I don't know. The blonde one. One of the blonde ones. Anywho, to talk in more general terms about the movie, there is this clique of cheerleaders, and there is the nerdy boys who are all into computers and Star Trek. They all wear like the Star Trek shirts. And
which is why it's so cool in the remake that George Takei, who played Sulu, I don't know how to actually say his last name, sorry if I messed that up, from the original series, actually is like the big person of the remake. So I'm like, that's kind of cool. Yeah. The other main groups, I guess, are these Catholic mothers with too much time on their hands, who enlist Stefan, who is the gay guy, the villain, and this group of reformed Catholic prostitute girls, all with that are samurai swords and bazookas,
to like go kill the cheerleaders. And Stefan wants revenge on the cheerleaders because they didn't let him on.
They showed a wonderful flashback, and then everybody called out the flashback for being a useless flashback, which I love anything that breaks the fourth wall. So this does it a lot. They look into the camera, it's great.
Yeah, this movie does a ton with breaking the fourth wall, and it like acknowledges every single movie trope as a movie trope, which I think is one of the things that actually makes it a very good bad movie. Now, as I said, there's lots of naked women throughout the movie, and it's very cliched in the fact that they're portraying the dumb cheerleaders and the smart nerds. However, lots of the female characters in this movie are very strong female characters.
I actually could catch that even from the early parts, and I know you said it came out more later, but even in the early parts, especially with the female girls, they were just like, oh, you're virgins too, and these are the cheerleaders saying this like, oh, we're all virgins, which is like something you don't usually expect. So the fact that they are kind of like chaste, which isn't necessarily a good or bad thing, but it's an inverse of the trope. So I thought that was interesting.
And also with that exact scene, there was a really great line, because there was like the reformed girls, like calling out the cheerleaders, like, we'll see you two, or like something virgins, and like it was like a weird sentence, and when they said, oh, you're virgins too, the other girl's like, no, there's a comma in front of virgins, and like every girl in the movie had something she was really smart about. The girl, Heather, who's like blonde and obsessed with shoes, actually gets really good at the karate stuff, and she's kind of better than everyone else. Even though they don't really focus on that, you definitely see it in the karate scenes. We find out at the end, this will be a spoiler for Ashley, so I can't wait to see her reaction.
Oh gosh.
That the main cheerleader, Angela, even
Which
though
one was that? I couldn't
she
tell
was the
whose
one with
name
the
was
short
what.
hair.
Okay. Right.
She's going to college on a cheerleading scholarship, which I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I did.
But she's studying computer science.
Yay.
So she's secretly a nerd, and she knows all this stuff about computers, and she ends up saving the day at the end by unplugging the computer, because really, these nerds are so smart, and none of them ever think to unplug the computer.
That's a common sense thing, which is actually kind of interesting, because even in books I've read where a lot of like nerds and really smart people are doing things, there was one that was like this test when they got into the smart school of like why the computer wasn't working, and literally you just had to turn it on. And a lot of people apparently take a long time, but I feel like it's showing like really into like intelligence versus common sense kind of stuff, which I think I like that, even though I didn't get to see it.
The introduction of this one character, I believe her name is Jane. I don't know if you met Jane.
Maybe.
Jane is from Kentucky.
Yes.
And
Sorry.
she's great. I love the crap out of Jane.
She was cool from what I
She's
saw.
so
her.
perfect. And she also has kind of a flair for computers, which we only see a little taste of, because they're like talking to the nerds at one point, and Jane says something to this nerd whose name is Flamer because he farts a lot, about his computer. And he's like, oh, you know about computers? And she's like, well, I'm not on the team yet, so I can show how smart I am, and says some stuff. And then the girls are like, no, don't let them think we're friends with them, and they drag her away and go shopping. But the movie does have a lot of strong female characters. They beat everyone up. And the sound effects. I want to talk about the sound effects.
Stock sound effects galore. Every free sound effect you could find was probably in this movie, and they used it too much to the point of like hilarity, because they knew. They were like, oh, I'm slapping you across the face. Let's add a lawnmower sound there, because that makes sense.
Right.
And
there's a really great part with actually slapping someone across the face, where they're slapping, the reform girls are slapping the head nerd, whose name is, I don't remember. Sorry. They're slapping him across the face, and like it's clearly the stock sound effect, and then after they slap him like twice, he continues to move his head like that, and they continue to play the sound effect, and it's really great. I loved it. I was dying. I thought it was phenomenal. I also love bad movies, so yeah, kind of my thing.
I don't mind bad movies. I think what made this so hard for me to watch were a combination of the bad acting, especially with the adults in it. Like I felt like the kids kind of knew they were like in a bad movie, but the adults to me almost didn't seem like they did, and it was just to this point where I just couldn't handle it. And then it was the lighting of it all that really I just couldn't stand, because it was clearly shot in like bright daylight outside, but everything looked like it was like a really cloudy day with like a little bit of light coming out from the outside in a basement. And I just don't understand how you could possibly mess up so badly to achieve that kind of lighting, because that's just like, good for you, you suck that much. And I just couldn't, because I was like, I can see the sun, but why is it so dark?
Yeah.
Stop.
I don't know. I'm not a film person. Overall, there's not much that goes on in the movie. They talk a lot about the internet, which is really interesting, because I don't know when it was made, but I think it was like the 70s?
Okay, this movie was released in 2003, and I was so confused by that, because it looks like it was shot like early 90s based on like the computers they had and everything else, but it was released in 2003. So did it take like 15 years to get it released? I'm not really sure. Like, what was your technology making this? All I know was it released in the early 2000s. That's like the same time Mean Girls came out. What are you doing? Sorry.
Well, my theory then would be that they are kind of setting it a little further back in the past, into the early 90s, when computers were becoming a thing, because they talk a lot about the internet, and then there's a really great part later where the nerds, there's like this virus put into the computers with like the spinny thing, and they're all like hypnotized by it, and they're like, and it's the internet. And I feel like that kind of, maybe what they're trying to do there is mock the like obsession with computers that started to come about in the early 2000s. Overall, the evil guy doesn't end up being Steven. Steven does eventually get let on the cheerleading team at the end. And there's lots of references to naked Sean Connery. Also, that's a thing that happens a lot. I don't know. The evil guy ends up being this guy who's like not quite a nerd, but not quite popular. He sits like right on that line.
Was he in the extras, the board extras seats? Because I thought that was funny.
Maybe. He has a computer and he's always, it's like a laptop, and he's always by himself, and he's like,
oh, that guy.
Yeah.
I met that guy.
He ends up being the totally evil one who tries to take over the world with this floppy disk. There's a floppy disk at the end.
I've been using floppy disks since middle school, and even then they were outdated. Yeah. I used those because I didn't finish my homework, and I thought maybe if it wouldn't put in the computer correctly, I could have a little bit of an extension on my time.
Yeah.
Miss those days.
So he ends up being the totally evil one at the end, and he strokes a stuffed cat.
Of course he does.
Stuffed cat. It was great. Also, at the very end of the movie, the two very dumb cheerleading girls come out as lesbians.
Yeah.
And they're dating.
Yeah.
So there's another great thing for social justice and social rights in this. I mean, it had strong female characters, had a lesbian couple, had the gay guy. He was very, very stereotypical, but still was an interesting character. The cops come in at the end also and like kind of arrest like the evil guy for, I don't know.
Virus! Internet!
Yeah.
I don't understand!
And it was...
Can I just talk real fast how I love the mothers in the beginning with the, they're looking up on the internet and how it has all this like gay porn and all these things on it, it's so bad. But all the mothers are like, oh my god, show me more, this is awful, I need to see more. I just love that.
It was so
funny.
great. So, Catholic mothers was too much
basically everyone's, their obsession with the internet and the glories and mystifications of it and all that. And words probably don't exist, but still.
It's really about the internet and sex. That's basically what this movie is about. And
clearly written by like a high school or college age dude.
Yeah. It's very funny, it's not very serious, but it does touch on some more serious issues, and it's very lighthearted about them. I personally would suggest watching it at a bad movie night.
With friends. My problem is that I was watching it alone. It's never fun to watch like a bad movie by yourself, honestly. I mean, I guess you were.
Yeah.
But I generally don't enjoy it as much. I need people to laugh with it about, and maybe something else to do, so I'm not just trying to focus on it.
So, the O scale, I don't even know if you're gonna...
I'm not gonna give a rating. Gabby, it's all up to you.
I'm gonna give this 2.5 O's. I'm very biased. I love bad movies, but as Ashley said, the video quality isn't that good, but they did what they could with the lack of budget they had, and it's very funny and it makes fun of itself. So
sounds good to me.
Cheerleader ninjas, yeah, go team.
Woo! Please let us know what you think, comment below, subscribe, all that jazz. Follow TowerlightVideo on Twitter, because that's how we're posting this out, and let us know what you want us to watch on Netflix. We'll see you next week. Netflix? No!
Hi everybody, I'm Gabby.
I'm Ashley.